The twin suns of the planet Leora 7 rose over silver plains that shimmered like liquid glass. The wind carried the scent of crystal dust and the faint hum of alien life waking for another day. For most humans, this world was too far, too strange, too dangerous. But for one man named Eli, it had become home, though he never meant it to be. Eli had crash-landed here a year ago when his patrol ship was ambushed by raiders. His distress beacon had gone silent and no rescue came. The first days were a blur of pain and survival, repairing his oxygen tank, scavenging food, and fighting off predatory creatures that could slice armor like paper. Then he met them, two sisters from the native race known as the Leorans. Their names were Lyra and Nira, mirror images of each other yet different in presence. Lyra was bold and quick to act, while Nira was calm and thoughtful, her silver eyes watching the world as if she could see its hidden patterns. When Eli first saw them, they stood over him as he lay bleeding in the sand. They could have left him there, as their kind often distrusted humans, but instead they took him to their hidden settlement beneath the glass mountains. Leora 7 was not kind to outsiders, but the sisters had reason to help him. Raiders had been plundering their villages, taking technology and leaving death. They needed someone who understood warfare. Eli, once a soldier, became their teacher. He showed them how to fight with precision, how to organize defense, how to turn courage into strategy. Over months, he built walls with them, shared food, and taught them how to use captured rifles. He repaired their shields and learned their language through patient nights under twin moons. The bond grew slowly. First respect, then friendship, then something deeper that none of them dared to name. He was their protector, and they became his reason to keep living. When the raiders returned, they came in force. Eli stood on the front wall with his old pulse rifle humming, his armor cracked but steady. The Leorans fought beside him, their blades glowing faintly in the dim light. The air filled with the roar of plasma fire. Eli directed every move, shouting for Lyra to take the left flank and Nira to guard the children hidden in the crystal caverns. When the dust cleared, the raiders fled, leaving behind twisted wreckage and silence. That night, the village burned with victory fires. The Leorans sang songs older than human memory. Eli sat apart, his heart heavy with both relief and exhaustion. He had protected them, but he knew something inside him had changed. He was no longer just a soldier. He was bound to these people, to these sisters who looked at him not as an alien but as one of their own. Later, when the fires dimmed and the sky turned violet, Lyra and Nira found him at the edge of the camp. Lyra's armor was scorched, her cheek marked by a thin line of blood. Nira's hand still trembled from the fight. Without a word, they sat beside him. The silence between them was not awkward but peaceful, filled with shared breath and understanding. "You should rest," Nira whispered. "I'm fine," Eli replied, though his voice was rough. "You bleed," Lyra said, touching his arm gently. He looked at her hand against his skin, the contrast of silver and human warmth. "We all do," he said softly. That night they brought him to their home, a modest dwelling carved into the side of a crystal cliff. It shimmered faintly, casting soft blue light across the room. He had stayed there before, but this time, something felt different. The sisters prepared a resting place, laying soft woven cloths and pouring a bowl of light water, a glowing liquid that healed wounds. Nira tended to his injuries while Lyra stood nearby, silent but watching him with unreadable eyes. "You saved us," Nira said quietly. Eli shook his head. "We saved each other." Lyra's lips curved slightly. "Then we protect you now." They would not let him return to his cold tent outside. The night on Leora 7 was colder than any human could bear without heat shielding, so they insisted he stay inside. He hesitated, unsure if it was right, unsure what boundaries still existed between their kinds, but they did not see him as an outsider anymore. He had shared blood, sweat, and loss with them. He was part of their circle. As the night deepened, the hum of distant creatures faded. The twins lay on opposite sides of the room, and Eli rested between them. The warmth of their presence and the gentle glow of the walls made the place feel alive. They spoke quietly, telling stories of their childhood, of the time before the raiders came, of the stars they once dreamed of seeing. Eli listened, and for the first time since he'd left Earth, he felt peace. The next morning, the village elders came to him. They offered him the Mark of the Guardian, a title never given to an off-worlder. It meant protector, family, and warrior of the clan. He refused at first, but Nira placed her hand on his chest and said, "You already carry it in your heart." Lyra smiled and added, "You belong to us now, human or not." Time passed. Eli trained their new generation of warriors, building a defense force that could repel any future threat. The twins often joined him, sparring with laughter and grace. They had become leaders in their own right, guiding their people with wisdom and courage. And through it all, they stood by his side. On quiet nights, they would climb the high ridge overlooking the silver plains. The stars hung low and bright, and the wind carried soft whispers from distant lands. Eli would look at the horizon and wonder if any human ship would ever find him. He wasn't sure he wanted them to anymore. This world had taken everything he once was and shaped him into something new. Lyra would tease him then, saying he looked too serious for someone who had won so many battles. Nira would smile and hand him a cup of warm crystal tea, its scent like wildflowers in metal rain. And Eli would laugh, realizing he no longer felt the loneliness that once haunted him. One evening, a new danger came, not from raiders, but from within. The elders wanted to send a message to other tribes, inviting them to unite under one banner. It was a noble idea, but it risked drawing attention from forces beyond their world. Eli warned them, but pride and hope overruled caution. The call was sent, and a signal echoed into the stars. Weeks later, a ship descended from orbit. Not raiders, but a human patrol vessel responding to a long-lost distress beacon. They came for Eli. The officer who led them looked shocked to see him alive. "You're a legend, you know," the officer said. "We thought you were gone." He offered Eli a way home, a return to Earth, to comfort and civilization. Eli looked at the ship, then at the two sisters standing beside him. Lyra's expression was firm, hiding her fear. Nira's eyes shimmered with quiet sorrow. They didn't speak, but he knew their hearts. They didn't want to lose him, but they would not hold him back if he chose to go. He turned to the officer. "Thank you," he said, "but my place is here." The officer stared at him, confused. "You're choosing to stay? With them?" Eli smiled faintly. "They're my people now." The ship left, disappearing into the sky. The twin stood beside him as the wind swept over the plains. Lyra touched his shoulder, her voice soft. "You could have gone back to your kind." "I already did," Eli said, looking at them both. From that day, he was no longer just a protector. He became a symbol of unity between two worlds. Humans would one day hear stories of the man who stayed on Leora 7, the soldier who became the guardian of twin sisters and their people, the one who found a new meaning of home far beyond the stars. The twin suns rose again, spilling gold over the crystal plains. Eli stood at the ridge with Lyra and Nira beside him. They watched the light spread, the world waking beneath their feet. He didn't know what the future would bring. New threats, new hopes, but he knew he would face it with them. In that moment, under the twin suns of a world not his own, Eli understood that humanity was not measured by the world of one's birth, but by the heart that chose to protect and to love beyond the boundaries of species or sky.